my guys, and welcome back to the airwaves. You've tuned in to the Life to the Full podcast, the podcast that equips you and inspires you to live life to the full, make the most of your time here on Earth. As you may know, we've had a few in-between episodes on the podcast recently, and now it's time to kick off Season 3 for real. I'm pretty excited about that, if I'm honest. In Season 2, we looked at financial health. We looked at how we are all playing the money game, whether we realise it or not. We looked at the rules for the money game and how to play to win. And now we're going to take a bit of a deep dive here in Season 3 into physical health. We have our 5 pillars of fitness and health and longevity and goodness and life to the full here on the podcast. They are financial health, physical health, relational health, mental health, and spiritual health. So we're looking at physical health. We're going to be looking at movement, sleep, nutrition, how it all works together to build our bodies into the temples that they are. We'll look at fasting, hot and cold exposure, and the effect that all that has on our physical health. To coin a phrase, we are all playing the health game, whether we realise it or not. Let me start by taking you on a little journey. I want you to imagine that for some reason, an old auntie of some kind, or an elderly man you've befriended, wants to give you £1 million. How would you feel about that? Could you benefit from having an extra £1 million? I'm sure you'd feel amazing. I'm sure you're already thinking about what you could spend £1 million on. I know very few people who are self-aware enough to say that they aren't ready to handle £1 million just yet. Most of us would be like, just give me the money. But what if I said to you, you can have £1 million today, but from tomorrow morning onwards, you'd be bedridden with chronic ill health for the rest of your life? Would you still take it? Of course you wouldn't. Life itself is so much more precious than numbers on a screen. When you say it like that, it seems ridiculous that anyone could even contemplate anything else. Your physical health, what you can do with your body, is so much greater than numbers on a screen. Because let's face it, that's all money is in this present day, is little digits on a screen. It always makes me laugh when people say about Bitcoin, it's not tangible, it's all made up. Allow me to let you in on a little secret. It's all made up. The dollar, the pound, the euro, it's all just made up. Only a tiny percentage of money is physical. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. We're here to talk about your health and how to improve it. The reason that I started with financial health on the podcast is that it's the least important in many ways. If you have money, but you don't have your health, it all seems a bit pointless. If you don't have money, but you do have your health and your relationships, then you can often be far more satisfied with life and in life than if you have a ton of money but no one to share it with and a body that's failing you. You've already shown yourself that you would turn down a life-changing amount of money if it means sacrificing your health. You instinctively know that your health is so much more. A wise man once said, "Is not your body more important than clothes?" Money allows you certain things that help with the enjoyment of life, but your health will always be more important. Let's just get one thing out of the way straight off the bat. We can't control everything. Just like we saw in Season 2, there are things that can derail your financial plan that are outside of your control. There are things that can derail our lives when it comes to our physical health as well, that are completely outside of our control. We get hit by a car and paralyzed from the waist down. We develop ME or MS or another disease that destroys our body. Many of those things will be outside of our control. Accepting what is outside of our control requires wisdom and brings contentment. I don't worry about things outside of my control. I see it as a waste of emotional energy, and I'd encourage anybody to stop worrying about things outside their control. More on that in another episode. But there are very many things that we can control and that can lead to a better outcome and higher degrees of human flourishing when it comes to our health. There are lots of things we can do to extend our lives and, more importantly, have the quality of those years be far superior than the final years of our grandparents' generation. I was struck recently by this idea of, even if we do everything right from a physical health point of view, we might be able to extend our life expectancy by 4 or maybe 5 years, which makes you wonder, is it worth the effort? But when you think you can extend the years of quality of life by 15 or 20 years, then you really start to feel the purpose behind looking after your physical health. I mentioned way back in episode 3, Mrs. Wakamatsu. Back in 2016, I was fortunate enough to go to Japan on a school trip, and I stayed with a family who welcomed me like a son. I thought to myself, this lady can't be more than 50 years old. She's playing table tennis 4 times a week, on the board of education for Sakai City, kneeling and squatting to play with her little granddaughter, who was so cute. She could get up and down off the floor easier than I could. When I found out she was 72, I was mind blown. But it also opened my mind to what's possible if you take care of yourself physically. I want to do everything in my control to increase my likelihood of living a long and healthy life, one where I can grow old with my wife and see my children flourish into competent adults with their own children, and I can enjoy in my old age playing with my grandchildren. I recently got called an annoying healthy person by one of my friends. I took it as a compliment. My wife and I are known in our circles as the healthy people. We don't keep fit and active and eat healthily because we want to make people feel bad about their eating and moving habits. We do it because we want to not only steward our money well, but our bodies are also gifts and we want to steward them well too. But most of all, the reason why we work out 7 times a week and eat the foods that we eat is we enjoy it. One of the main things for me is I do things for enjoyment. When things are enjoyable and fun and serve a higher purpose, they are so much easier to do. I know it's cliche these days to talk about gamifying aspects of your life, treating your life like a Sims character, leveling up your finances, leveling up your physical health, your relationships, treating your marriage like a game where you have quests and missions, but it really is a fantastic way of framing your thinking about things you want to improve. I now enjoy eating healthily. I'll be the first to admit that I did not have the greatest diet before I got married. Mars bars and Mr. Kipling apple pies were a daily staple. I now love the thought of eating liver and fermented foods and things to improve my gut health, and it comes from changing my mindset. Asking, will this serve my 80-year-old self, is a great way to frame your nutritional choices. Success, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's financial success, physical health, relationships, is a function of how far you can look ahead and how much you're willing to do to decrease your temporal preference. That is, delaying gratification. Or, as I'd rather put it, choosing longevity. Eating those crisps and cake might seem great in the moment, but your future self will thank you for choosing more nutritious sustenance. I'm not saying never eat cake and never have 3 desserts. In fact, every once in a while I encourage that kind of behavior, because it stops you going too far the other way. But I am saying, if you have a vision for the future which is exciting and makes you want to choose your desired behavior, sticking with the healthy choice 80% of the time is a good starting point. When you have a goal in mind, the process becomes easier. To date, one of my greatest physical achievements is doing Ironman Wales back in 2019. At the time, I was umming and ahhing whether I should just book in for 2019 and do the best that I could, or wait until 2020 and get some more training under my belt. I am so glad I listened to my wife, who said, just get on with it. We all know how that could have worked out. Could have been waiting till 2022. Man, that's a lot of training. I'll probably talk about goals at some point on the podcast, but just a little mention here of the importance of not just having a goal, but having a goal that sets you on fire when you think about it. A goal that you know deep in your soul that you can't let go of. You can't not hit it. For me, that goal was doing an Ironman triathlon. When I started at university, I met a guy who had just done the Brighton Sprint Triathlon. I remember thinking, that is the coolest thing. One day, I want to go and do a triathlon. And for 3 years, my whole time at university, I basically just had this idea that one day I would do a triathlon. And then when I got married straight after university, my wife said to me, why are you just going on about it? Just book it. So we actually booked our first triathlon. She did the first one with me, and she did several afterwards. And we did our first triathlon, and it was fantastic. And as I was in the process of training for my first sprint triathlon, I came across this idea of Ironman. Now, for those of you who are unaware about Ironman is a triathlon, it's a brand of triathlon. It's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 miles on the bike, and then the small matter of a marathon at the end. 26.2 miles of running or shuffle walking at points. And as I discovered this idea, something clicked in me. Something went deep into my heart, deep into my soul, and said, one day you will do an Ironman triathlon. And I couldn't let go of that. Now, I did not do it the first year that I had that as a back of the mind goal. In fact, it took me the best part of 13 or 14 years of just consistently training, doing sprint triathlons, and then building up, doing an Olympic distance, doing a half Ironman, and then finally a marathon, getting my body used to training and running that far. And then in 2019, I completed Ironman Wales in a time of 14 hours, 41 minutes, which is not actually a great time, but that wasn't really the point. I'll talk about my training for Ironman in another podcast episode. But this goal for 14 years did not leave me. It was there, and it was a driving force behind my training, behind my getting up to go swimming, to go running, to go biking, and to be still competing in these sprint triathlons, thinking, one day, I'll do a bigger and longer triathlon, building up to Ironman. And then actually, once I completed the Ironman triathlon, it was an incredible feeling, an incredible accomplishment and achievement that I am still really proud of. But then the goal kind of disappeared. I'd done it, completed it, finished it, checked the box, got the t-shirt. And I actually found it quite hard to motivate myself to get out there and to get back on the bike and to get running again. I just thought, well, I've kind of done that now. What's the point? So I needed a new goal. I needed something else to do. So I realized after 14 years of endurance training and triathlon training, I was in pretty good shape, some might say, but I was very, very weak, not very strong at all. And I thought, I need to lift weights. I need to get stronger. I need to do something that isn't just cardio and that isn't actually going to ruin my knees for the long term. And so a couple of years ago, I started doing CrossFit, and it is absolutely incredible. It really suits my personality type of so many different things to do, so many different things to practice, so many things to get better at, and I haven't been bored in over a year and a half by now. So find something you enjoy doing. Decide what you want to get out of your physical activity. I wanted to get stronger, so I joined CrossFit. I also wanted to have the opportunity to do some HIIT training and some cardio all at the same time. So that's why CrossFit was the perfect thing for me to start. But do you just want to join a social netball club? Do you want to go swimming in the sea? Do you want to do pole fitness? CrossFit for you as well? It can literally be anything that you enjoy doing. Because if you enjoy it, you're about a bazillion times more likely to actually stick with your workout plan. Training for an Ironman will be completely different to training gymnastics. What are you optimizing for? Aesthetics? Flexibility? Strength? We're all playing the health game, whether we realize it or not. The name of the game when it comes to physical health is twofold. First and foremost, stay alive. Secondly, stay healthy. The three biggest causes of mortality in the world are cardiovascular disease, number 1, cancers, number 2, and respiratory diseases, number 3. Number 1 in the UK is dementia and Alzheimer's disease, and other neurodegenerative diseases. I've already said that we have no ultimate control over whether we are affected by these diseases, but there are things that we can do to not only tilt things in our favour, but to really benefit us and really give us the best chance of not getting any of these big diseases. What can we do to lower the probability that we end up with these diseases? Well, let's start with cardiovascular disease. According to the World Health Organization, cardiovascular diseases are a group of disorders of the heart and blood vessels. They include coronary heart disease, cerebrovascular disease, peripheral artery diseases, rheumatic heart diseases, rheumatic fever, congenital heart disease, deep vein thrombosis, and pulmonary embolism. These are all diseases of blood vessels supplying heart, the brain, the arms, the legs, blood clots, damage to the heart muscles and heart valves. These are all diseases of blood vessels supplying the heart, the brain, the arms, the legs. They are diseases that cause damage to the heart muscles and the heart valves. Deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolisms are blood clots in the leg veins which can dislodge and move to the heart and the lungs. Heart attacks and strokes are usually acute events and are mainly caused by a blockage that prevents blood from flowing to the heart or brain. The most common reason for this is a buildup of fatty deposits on the inner walls of blood vessels that supply the heart or brain. Strokes can be caused by bleeding from a blood vessel in the brain or from blood clots. The most important behavioral risk factors of heart disease and stroke are unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, tobacco use, and harmful use of alcohol. The effects of behavioral risk factors may show up in individuals as raised blood pressure, raised blood glucose, raised blood lipids, and being overweight and obese. Cessation of tobacco use, reduction of salt in the diet, eating more fruit and vegetables, regular physical activity, and avoiding harmful use of alcohol have been shown to reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. Now, to many of us, this seems to be just common sense. Don't smoke. It's incredibly, incredibly bad for you. Eat whole foods and do exercise. Just by doing these things, you can massively reduce your likelihood of suffering from some cardiovascular disease. How about cancers? According to cancer.org.au, at least 1 in 3 cancer cases could be prevented, and the number of cancer deaths could be reduced significantly by choosing a cancer-smart lifestyle. Each year, more than 13,000 cancer deaths are due to smoking, sun exposure, poor diet, alcohol, inadequate exercise, or being overweight. Seems to be a theme here. Fortunately, there are a number of simple lifestyle changes you can make to help reduce your risk of cancer. Then it goes on to say many of the same things, focusing on a healthy diet and exercise, just what we've been talking about already. Don't smoke, limit your alcohol intake, take care when you're out in the sun, and also, importantly, check yourself regularly and get screened to catch cancer early. If you are going to get it, the earlier you can pick it up, the better. There isn't any cancer that isn't significantly better to start treating earlier rather than later. In some cancers, the difference between treating stage 4 and stage 3 is going from 20% 5-year survival rate to 80%. What about respiratory diseases? The gov.uk website has this to say. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, respiratory diseases, those affecting the airway and lungs, were diagnosed in 1 in 5 people in England and were the third biggest cause of death. They are also a major driver of health inequalities, and much of this disease is largely preventable. Respiratory disease covers a wide variety of conditions, including common conditions such as asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, lung cancer, infections such as pneumonia and flu, and less common diseases such as interstitial lung disease and mesothelioma. Once again, you may not be surprised to find out that things like not smoking, avoiding pollution, can reduce respiratory diseases. But also, keeping your house clean and avoiding mold and damp can also massively help. I never thought I'd be talking about the importance of keeping your house clean on the Life to the Full podcast. Lastly, on our list of things to avoid dying from, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, dementia, or Parkinson's. Most of these come into play as we get older, so what can we do to prevent these diseases? Well, number 1, we can avoid head trauma. Getting hit in the head is not good. We know that from rugby players, American football players. Getting head injuries is likely to increase your chances of getting some kind of neurodegenerative disease as you get older. Again, eating healthily and exercising, but also maintaining social relationships and cognitively challenging activities, like learning a second or third or further language. Having lower cholesterol, don't have type 2 diabetes, and have good insulin sensitivity. Also, sleep matters. We're going to get into that later in this season. Looking forward to that one. Also, at some point, we'll pick up the link between mental health and physical health. Being physically healthy can give your mental health a massive boost. What can be said in conclusion then? Designing your life and lifestyle to optimize for your physical health is something to aspire to. I hope I've painted a picture of why you would want to prioritize your physical health and given you some inspiration for how to do it. Nobody is guaranteed tomorrow, but as long as I've got tomorrow, I'm going to be the healthiest, most active me that I can be. And you can do the same for you. Go and be the healthiest, strongest, fittest, most rested you can be. Don't forget to say hi on Instagram, David Morse and Life to the Full podcast. And if you are enjoying the show and haven't left a review yet, which is all of you, please feel free to do that. I've heard it's a good thing for the show. Thanks for joining me, and I'm already looking forward to the rest of the season. Peace out. Cerebrovascular.